finished up 34, and like we said, from the middle of 32 to the end of 35 is all one scenario. Why they broke it up the way they did, I'm not sure, but in the original Hebrew, there are no punctuations and everything's just one big long sentence. So somebody in their infinite wisdom decided where the chapters would end. Sometimes their logic is a little evades me. So let's read 35, 10 verses.
The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it will burst into bloom. It will rejoice greatly and shout for joy. The glory of Lebanon will be given to it, the splendor of Carmel and Sharon. They will see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God. Strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way. Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong, do not fear, your God will come. He will come with vengeance, with divine retribution. He will come to save you. Then will the eyes of the blind be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then will the lame leap like a deer, and the mute tongue shout for joy. Water will gush forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground, bubbling springs. In the haunts where jackals once lay, grass and reeds and papyrus will grow, and a highway will be there. It will be called the way of holiness. It will be for those who walk on that way. The unclean will not journey on it. Wicked fools will not go about on it. No lion will be there, nor any ravenous beast. They will not be found there, but only the redeemed will walk there. And those the Lord has rescued will return. They will enter Zion with singing. Everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them. And sorrow and sighing will flee away.
Okay. So, in the end of 34, remember Jesus Christ returned. And we talked about the 7 bowls of wrath and all that. We're not going to rehash that. We're not going to be here. The people who are here are being judged. And they just stubbornly have rejected what Jesus Christ has offered them. So Jesus Christ returns, and there's a valley of Armageddon, and then he sets in his kingdom. Now, the assignment for this morning is, as we go through this, what is being redone? That's your question. What is being redone? Because God said, I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. And he's redoing something.
Us?
Huh?
Us?
No. We'll get into it. So well, at one point, yes, but what's being redone? So that's your big question. So as we're going through this, what is he redoing? Right. Jesus Christ returns at the end of chapter 24, and then when we get into chapter 25, what's the first thing he does? Well, that's question number 2. The earth is restored. I don't know if you watch the news or check with ecology or whatever. Big item in the news this week was the Mississippi River is at the lowest stage it's ever been. I mean, there's big rocks that people never have seen before because of water levels. And down in New Orleans, where the river goes into the Gulf of Mexico, the salt water is beginning to come upstream higher and higher and higher, which is killing the natural freshwater mussels. And so like everything else in the world the last year, the price of mussels is doubled. When I make jambalaya, I always put mussels in my jambalaya. Well, you usually can buy enough mussels to make jambalaya for $10. Now, yesterday at Walmart for $25 for the exact same thing. They more than double because it's moving up. The biggest paradox I've seen lately is the streets of Las Vegas are flooding and 3 or 4 people have drowned. But you go 25 miles away to Lake Mead and it's totally empty. Where's all the water going? I mean, the whole thing doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But at this point in time, to some degree or another, the United States, just America itself, is 50% at some stage of drought. 50% of us are at some stage of drought. Okay. And, you know, it's just been getting a little bit worse all the time, and God is just gradually saying, warning us that He's not happy with some of the things that's going on in the world. So what's the first thing He's going to, do is come back. The second thing He's going to do is He's going to restore all the deserts. What would be the condition of the earth if all the deserts bloomed and were fruitful?
The contention?
Hmm?
What would happen, you mean?
What would improve?
Food sources, spaces for people?
And there wouldn't be any barriers. If you read that, He's going to bring rivers through the deserts. They're going to begin to flow through the deserts again. And those rivers are going to make the desert fertile. And at some point in there, it talks about the land itself. And it says that the land is going to be fertile again. Well, what's the condition of the land today? We have totally exploited. The cornfield across from me, they didn't get to the field fast enough to get the fertilizer on. And the guy thought they had put the fertilizer on, and he went out and planted the corn. Well, after he planted the corn, they couldn't put the fertilizer on; it would have burnt the corn. Okay? The biggest after he does that, I go out and pick up some squirrel corn, whatever the combine misses or drops onto the ground, and we're neighbors, and we get along real well, and he given me permission to do it, so I go out and pick up some squirrel corn. Usually I pick up ears about that long. He didn't get the fertilizer on the field, and the biggest ear I found this year was 4 inches long and about that big. He probably didn't pay for the diesel fuel it took to harvest that field. Our land has been exploited. It hasn't been properly managed. And if you miss the fertilizer or the herb control or the pesticide control, you're not going to have a crop. And he found out this year that that is exactly right. In the best part of his field, the biggest ear I found was about 4.5 inches. He had about a third of a crop, and it rained every week. I mean, it should have been his biggest year in decades, but I doubt that he paid it for his expenses. Our land's been totally exploited. Well, Jesus said He's going to make the land fertile again, and all the deserts are going to bloom. Right? So, number 3, the deserts are going to be watered. Number 4, verse 7, the plants will be restored. He talks about how the crops are going to explode, how there's going to be this great abundance of food, how there will be, and if you go to different sources talking about the same period of time, how there's not going to be any hunger. In Revelation it says that the fruit trees will bear fruit every 30 days. Just as you're using up the ones for October, the ones for November are going to bloom. If you go back and look at the original creation, there was this water vapor that totally encompassed the earth. And at night, the water vapor would fall down upon the earth in the form of dew. There wasn't any erosion. And then when the sun came up, the water vapor would go back up and would give us a canopy of water in the upper atmosphere of the earth. That had a lot of advantages. Number one, there was a greenhouse effect. Now that's bad, right? Right? I gotta know.
That's what we're told.
Huh?
That's what we're told.
What we're told, yeah. But what was the effect of the greenhouse effect? Well, we
Protection.
have indications of it as they take core samples in different places of the earth. They've taken core samples in Antarctica, and down below the ice, when they finally hit the terra firma, the earth itself, they go down a few feet, and what they find? Coal. How do you get coal?
Plants.
Huh?
Plant compression.
And specifically, coal seems to be formed, for the most part, by rainforests. Wherever the rainforests are, if you go down and you'll find coal in huge, massive layers. It just keeps compacting and compacting, and as the rain washes it down into the earth, and the weight of the earth compresses it. And where are all the diamond mines?
Rainforest.
In places where the coal is at its thickest and is compressed the most, and the diamonds are formed. Africa and South Africa and places like that is where we find the diamonds, because they're caused by the coal being compressed, and the coal is caused by rainforest activity, and we're the rainforest, Africa, South America, around the equator. Well, where are we at here? The plants are gonna be restored, and they're gonna be restored over the entire earth. The deserts are going to bloom. The deserts are going to be lush, the starvation is going to be wiped away. There will be one person, one rule, one government, and he will own all the fruit trees. So if I'm walking down the road and I'm hungry, there's a fruit tree, it doesn't belong to John anymore. It belongs to God. And God is going to give us, we're going to have generous hearts. God is going to restore human beings to what they were originally meant to be. Adam and Eve did not own the Garden of Eden. It was given them as a place. In the beginning, human beings were like the animals. They just wandered around, and they didn't build fences. It's not until we developed an economy like we have today where greed began to set in. This morning, I'm checking the weather, and after the weather, it hopped over to a news station, and they were talking about the pandemic and all the terrible consequences that the COVID pandemic had created. And there was a group of people in the United States who sold all their stocks at exactly the right time and bought new different stocks at the exact same time and made millions upon millions of dollars. Who were they?
Congress.
Huh?
Congress, leaders.
Congress. You know, if in the beginning, the people did what was right in there, if you read the Old Testament, there are several places that people did what was right in their own eyes. We didn't have a government lording over us. And when Israel wanted a king, God said, not a good idea. Remember why he said it was not a good idea?
He was their king.
Huh?
Because he was their king.
He was our king. And what was going to happen if we chose a human king, a human government? Just what's happening today.
Corruption.
They would take advantage of us. He said they will take your young men and they will send them off to war, and they themselves won't go. They'll tax you and they'll tax you, and they'll live in luxury and you'll live in poverty. He went through the whole scenario. And he said, don't do it. Let me be your Lord. We'll have a system of judges. If there's a dispute, they will decide what's right and what's wrong. They won't get paid. They'll meet at the gates first thing in the morning. And if you have a dispute, both of you who are involved in the dispute, go to the gate, lay down your case to the judge. He will decide what's right and what's wrong. And you go on about your life. They're not going to tax you. They're not going to use that tax money to be corrupt, to live in fine mansions, to what was the biggest news item today, or at the end of the week this week? Nancy Pelosi's house got broken. And now it's a big tragedy. I mean, for months, people have been beaten over the head with a hammer in the subways of New York. Nobody's done a thing about it. But Nancy Pelosi's husband gets attacked, and it's all over the news all day long. I just finally turned the TV off and went out and played with my dog. Because Nancy Pelosi has been abused. Well, I got news for her. Her government has been abusing us for decades, for years. And this pandemic thing, everybody in Congress became millionaires, multiple layered millionaires because of the pandemic. I didn't get the information, so I didn't do what they did, and things aren't quite the same for me, or for you. And it all goes right back to what God says. Let me be in charge, and you won't have to suffer the corruption of human governments. Well, we all know how that turned out. Number 5, verse 9. The beasts will become docile. If you go to other parts of the Bible, it says the lion will lay down with the lamb, and there will be no enmity between them. It said that children will play with the vipers, and they will not be bitten, and they will not be hurt. The whole countenance of everything is going to change, because the peace of God is going to rule the land, and even the animals are going to respond. And number 6, 9 through 10, mankind will be restored. If we took money out of the scenario, what would the human relationship be? How would it be changed? What's the Bible say about money?
Root of all evil.
Huh?
Root of all evil.
Almost.
The love of money.
The
Love of money.
Is the root of all evil. Yeah, but you're right, it's the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. Look at the 10 Commandments. How many of them pertain to money? Thou shalt not steal.
Money.
Okay? Money's involved in it. Thou shalt not be greedy. Thou shalt not envy what your neighbor has. It's all about value of money. And when money gets involved, the whole thing just falls apart. I've been in situations where, money was involved. And I tried in the beginning to say, look, I'll just help you for a while, no money involved. Let's just stay friends. And, once you get started and once you get on your feet, I'll just go back to being retired. No, I have to pay you, I have to pay you, I have to pay you. I can't let you do that. How'd it end? Lost a very good friend. Because there was a disagreement on how the whole scenario ended. And I'm not gonna go into the gory details. But if I had just stuck to my guns and said, I'm not taking your money, we'd still be friends. And they'd still be in my life and they'd still be in your lives, but because I broke my rule, it all fell apart. I've helped with some weddings. Absolutely refused to take the money. Other people were involved with money in the exact same weddings. And there was all this tension and all this aggravation and all these problems in some of these situations where money got involved. Well, it cost me this, well, it cost me that. Well, it's your daughter's only wedding, and sounds cheap to me, but the bottom line was, I didn't have any of that scenario to deal with because I didn't charge anything. If I can do it, I'll do it. If I can't do it, I'll just say, no, I'm sorry, I can't afford to do it, and I'm not getting money involved in this because I don't want to lose you for a friend. I have gone to that point. I will not take the money. And if I can't afford to do it, fine. I'll just say, no, I can't afford to do it, and I'm not doing the money thing with you. Bottom line is, money ruins everything. It just distorts and twists it and causes the whole thing to fall apart.
Exchange
Now-
canned goods instead.
Hmm?
Exchange canned goods instead. Exchange canned goods instead, or fresh fruit, vegetables, gardens.
Bacon.
Yeah, bacon.
The barter system.
Barter system.
But that eliminates.
I was gonna say, people say, I'll do something. It's like I want to pay it. Yeah. I said, somebody's like, oh, I want to pay you for it. I said, just bake me a cake or give me some fresh vegetables or something like that. I've exchanged, and they're just perfectly happy with that.
Absolutely. You've eaten breakfast free for 13 years. Huh? We're still friends. If money had gotten involved,
You got bacon.
if money would have gotten involved in that, this class would be totally different. Would be totally different. People wouldn't come on Sunday morning if they didn't have enough cash to put something in the pot, and they would feel guilty about eating breakfast. The whole thing would be totally messed up because of $1 or $2. And I can go on and go on and go on and tell you how I have lost some very dear friends because of $30. It's nuts. Money ruins everything. Now we have to have it. We have to pay the electric bill, and we have to have a job, and we have to buy clothes. We live in that kind of a world. But when it comes to personal relationships, it's just best if you can, best you possibly can, leave money out of it. Let the money go. Okay, what has just happened here? What had just happened again here? Remember Genesis chapter 1? What was first? Let there be light. This started in 34 when the light returned for the second time and brought light back to the earth. Jesus Christ returned. One of the words for Jesus Christ is the light. Okay. What's the second thing that was dealt with in Genesis? Water. Because that was the second thing that was most important for life to exist. What's the second thing that happened here? He watered the deserts. And what did that do? restored the plants. What happened in Genesis? What was the third phase of Genesis? He dealt with the water. The third thing he did here was, we're going right back to the Garden of Eden. We're going right back to the way it was in Adam and Eve's day. The money is going to be out of it. The evil and the greed and the corruption is going to be out of it, because we're not going to have governments colluding with each other, and we're not going to have the politics of all of it. $130 million was spent last week on this election. What if we just spent that money to house the homeless? And why did we spend it? Because Congress wants to stay rich. Do the math. They make $165,000 a year, living in the most expensive city in the United States, and they're all millionaires. Does that say there's a problem here? Does that raise a flag in your head? I mean, and why are they spending $130 million? So they can stay millionaires. Where did he get the $130 million? Well, they talked people into giving it to them. They made promises that they're going to keep. We're never going to find out about it, but why don't we just spend $130 million for a $165,000 job? Wouldn't it make sense just to live off the $130 million? I mean, nothing about it makes logical sense. There's got to be something dark that we don't know about, and the bottom is their wealth and power. The second corruption in the Bible is power. There won't be any conflicts of power when Jesus Christ returns. He'll be in charge. There won't be any Russia trying to overpower Ukraine. There won't be any North Korea trying to overpower South Korea. There won't be any North Vietnam trying to overpower South Vietnam. And why do they want to do it? They want what they have. That's the bottom line. Well, it won't be that way. There won't be boundary lines. The whole world will be one big nation. It'll have one ruler, and he will rule in love. And the entire scenario will be different. What's going on in 35? Well, he's recreating the earth and sending it back to what it should have stayed being in the very beginning. The earth was self-sustaining. There wasn't any corruption, there wasn't any greed to overpower the cornfield and make it give you another bushel of corn so you could be richer. The only issue is, what's the only issue in the animal world if you take out the humans? What's the only issue?
Other animals?
Hmm?
Other animals? Other animals?
They overpopulate.
Hmm?
They overpopulate.
No. There's a natural process there. When the rabbits are really plenty, I have a lot of coyotes and foxes messing with me. When the population of the rabbit goes down, the population of the coyotes go down. It self-balances itself. It's us that makes it. We took away the habitat for the deer, so they overpopulate because there's not near as many woods as there used to be, and there's not near as many nut trees as there used to be. And so now they overpopulate. If the natural order of things is just left to be its own thing, then the world just works just perfectly fine. When the food source is down, the population, the females don't have near as many deer. When there's a lot of feed, all the does all have twins. They have 2 offspring or 3 offspring every year. Now, when things are bad and when the winters are hard, they only have 1, or they have 1 for every other doe. It self-regulates itself if you keep the greed and the corruption and the envy out of it. It was created perfect. If you take the top priority for any animal tomorrow is finding enough to eat. Not making $1 million, not infringing on anybody else's fence. There are no boundaries out there for the deer. They go and live wherever the best place is to live. We put up our fences and we say, stay off my 6 acres. Stay out of my garden. Don't eat my apples. The deer, they just eat my apples anytime they want to. And it's interesting, there's done a lot of studies with animals. A lion will not bother the offspring of an antelope unless it's hungry. Otherwise, the lion cubs and the antelope fawns will play together. And there's all kinds of videos on YouTube showing it happen. There's no politics involved. There's just survival. That's all there is to it. There's no politics in the animal kingdom, only in the human race. And if you go to places where there's very few humans and lush animals, you don't find emancipated animals. They respond according to the food supply, the water supply, and there's a lot of population where there's a lot of food, and there's little population where it's been grazed. And they migrate around. They move from place to place. I can't move around. I got 6 acres and I gotta stay on it. I can't go to the neighbor's 6 acres and steal his corn. Well, I could. then I'd be playing right into the scenario, right? No, the animals are just free to graze and to eat and to migrate around to whatever situation is best for them. It is money and profit and greed that got involved that messed the whole thing up. In the beginning, you walk through the garden, you eat whatever you wanted to eat except for the tree, except for one stinking tree. God said, all you gotta do is one thing, and you'll live in prosperity for the rest of your life. And we couldn't even pull that off. So much for 35. God is going to recreate the Garden of Eden, and we're going to live in it. It's